So, hi, my name is Katie Netter, a producer for Small Business Digest, and I'm here with Juliet Hall. So, Juliet, as we ask all our guests on the show, what's your personal background, and tell us about your company and website.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on the show, Katie. I am originally from Columbia, South Carolina, born and raised there. I attended Spelman College, which is in Atlanta, Georgia, and I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in English and with a minor in psychology. I went to work in corporate America upon my graduation, and I started my career in banking operations. And then after 3.5 years of deciding that that wasn't for me, I decided to make a career pivot and worked for a restaurant organization. And I was with that organization for 17 years. So I've been in corporate America for a total of 20 years, or I had been in corporate America for 20 years with a background in banking operations and franchisee operations, with a little bit of marketing in there as well. And I just decided that after 20 years of working in the corporate system, that it just wasn't for me. I grew in the corporate system. I evolved as a leader. I had wonderful experiences, but it got to a point where I decided that the sandbox that I was given um, was smaller than my leadership capacity. I thought I could do more than the opportunity that I had, and I wanted to bet on myself and make another career pivot towards self-employment. So I have been in business for myself now for the past 6, almost 7 years. My uh, company is Juliet Hall Inc., and it's a boutique leadership consulting firm. And I have been the principal of my leadership consulting firm for the past 6, 7 years. I do a lot of speaking, um, coaching, advising, and recently I just wrote my book, Own Your Opportunities, which has been very well received. And in fact, it won a book award with the Nautilus Book Award organization. And so that's what I do. The book, Own Your Opportunities, was recognized in the category of personal growth and self-help. So I have a very colorful background. What else do you have for me?
Yeah, so can you tell our audience a little bit about what your book is about, and how can our audience benefit from reading it?
Yes. So, Own Your Opportunities is a self portrait of a Black woman in corporate America who discovers her value, and she leaves a company to pursue sanity and the freedom to realize her dream. So that's what the book is about. And essentially the story is my own. I share my own narrative of how I evolved in corporate America, how I overcame episodes of corporate trauma, to discover myself and to realize that I had a choice to do what I wanted to do with my life. And so that's what the book is about. And I also provide tips for self discovery and self regulation in the back of the book, to provide a compass for my readers so that they can also pursue their own opportunities and help them along their path of self discovery as well. And so that's what the book is about, and it's available online wherever books are sold. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. And if any of your listeners out there are in the Atlanta area, they can actually go inside the Barnes and Noble bookstore to purchase the book in Atlanta.
Nice. So my next question is, why did you decide to write your book, Own Your Opportunities?
I wanted to write a book to encourage and inspire people, to let them know what's possible. I lay my life out in the book. as an example to encourage other people to bet on themselves. And because I do enjoy coaching people and advising them, and I love to speak, I love a stage. It's prudent for any speaker to have a book, right? So that's the other reason why I wanted the book. But the main reason that I wrote the book, it was purely out of obedience to this calling that I have to write, and I wanted to maximize that opportunity to do so. And so I wrote the book out of that act of obedience, and also for the purpose of encouraging other people who are at a professional crossroads, and and who just need a compass on perhaps what they should do with their life professionally.
So, based on your experiences, what would you advise women on? So, what kind of advice would you give women?
Well, I give I give advice to I think I would start with this. I believe that self-discovery is at the genesis of true leadership. I think it's important to know who you are. We live in a society where we are culturally conditioned to live according to a certain track. You go to school, you get your education, you get your degree, you get a job, you work for someone else, you get married, pay your bills, and die. But our society doesn't really condition us to self-actualize. Our culture really is a space, and is our culture really wants us to be controlled. I mean, to be pretty blunt with it. And I just believe in the fact that we are individuals, and I help women to tap into their own individuality. My advice to women is to understand what makes you unique, to understand what your true giftings are, because it's your gifts that ultimately make room for you. And so that's the advice that I give. It all leans towards self-discovery, which is really what my book um, is about. It has that theme of self-discovery. And so that's my advice to women is, get to know who you are, what makes you unique, and maximize that, own that, own your value. So that's my advice to women.
Mhm. Yeah, so can you give us some examples from your book or from your own experiences in life, the advice that you provide to women?
Yeah, so every chapter title is a key to owning your opportunities. And so the first chapter title, I'll just start with that. And its advice: you have to recognize when you've outgrown a situation. Recognize when you've outgrown a situation. That's chapter one. And that's very important for women because we tend to stay in places longer than we need to be. By nature, within our DNA, we are nurturers. We are very much supportive of, of the people that we care about. We're very relational organisms, or organic beings, I should say. And so, and that's a great thing. It's a part of who we are. But the downside is that we can stay in spaces and places for far too long. So, one piece of advice: recognize when you've outgrown a situation. And in my book, I give 3 examples, or 3 ways in which you can do that. 3 checks, as I call them, Katie. So the first check is it's a vision check. If your vision for yourself, for your life, does not align with where you are, with who you're with, if there's a disconnect there, then it may be time that you leave that space to pursue another. because anytime where there is a conflict in vision, there will always be division, right? So that's one way to recognize when you've outgrown a situation. Another way that I describe in the book is you want to do a growth check. So you have a vision check, and then the second check is a growth check. Are you growing where you are? Are you becoming a better version of yourself in the space that you're in the organization that you work for, on the team that you're a part of? Or do you feel stagnant? So if you don't feel like you are growing, if you don't feel like you are evolving, if you don't feel like you are uh, receiving opportunities to stretch yourself and to learn new things, then you most likely have outgrown that situation that you're in, that organization, that team, that culture. And then the third check, so I talked about vision, I talked about a growth check, and then the third check is your attitude. So if you find yourself in a space where you are angry or where you are bitter, you have to pay attention to your internal tension. You have to pay attention to how you show up in the presence of others. And if you are in a place where you are constantly angry or bitter or even bored, then it may be time for you to leave. So that's advice that I help women to understand, and that's from the book. It's the first chapter: recognize when you've outgrown a situation. And you can do that by understanding what your vision is, understanding where you are in terms of your growth, and then knowing what your attitude is.
So can you give some examples of how you've used these strategies and pieces of advice in your own life?
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
even recognize when you outgrown a
Mm.
situation. I write about it in the book. I mean, it's for me, the example is I recognize that I had outgrown the culture that I was a part of in corporate America, and I created a plan for myself so that I could make my own pivot.
Yeah. So our audience are people that are in small business. So what do you want to say to women in small business that are in small business so that they can succeed?
That you can't give up, that you have to understand that there are highs and lows, that you have to understand that it's a journey, that you have to understand that, when you sow seeds into your business, you don't eat the fruit the next day. It takes time. It takes time for seeds to manifest and grow. And even in that process of germination, that seeds develop in the right environment. They develop in the dirt, with appropriate sunlight and water. It needs the right environment in order to grow, and it also needs pressure, heat and pressure in order to grow. And that's a metaphor that I like to use to help and encourage women, whether they are in business for themselves, or if they are in a corporate environment and they have a side hustle, or just in general, that you have to trust the process, that you have to do your due diligence in terms of planning for your business, and that you're planting seeds into your business every single day. But you also have to recognize that before your business can really take off, it takes time. So that's something I would share.
Yeah. So do you have any other special words of advice, more specifically for female business owners?
Um, More specific words, is that, other than, not giving up, I think it's just important to always grow yourself as a business owner. So even though I work for myself, Katie, I still have people. I have a team around me that challenge me. I have my own board of directors for my organization. And, they're not only looking at my numbers, they're not only making sure that I'm within legal, that I'm making sure that I am abiding by a legal process by way of my contracts, and not just, my own service contracts, but any type of contractual opportunities. I have people around me to help me grow. Um, and I just think that is so important, because when you're leaving corporate America to start your own business, one of the other pieces of advice, I give a lot of different advice in my book, but I also share that it's important that you don't leave alone. So a lot of people want to leave one situation and they want to go into another situation, um, and create their own structure, which is great. But I think you have to apply some wisdom in that transition. And it's so important to have a team around you who believe in you, who believe in your vision, who are their own subject matter experts, so that they can challenge you and hold you accountable to the goals that you have. I would not be where I am right now if I didn't have a team of people to challenge me. So that's extremely important.
Yeah. So what kind of challenges then did you face when you were starting your own organization, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Well, one of the biggest challenges that I faced was, I had all this time on my hand, and it was actually a wake up call for me to move from a structured environment, which was in corporate America, where you had your 9 to 5, and you had goals that were given to you that you had to meet, to move from that type of structure and predictability into creating your own structure as a business owner. And and understanding, okay, when I wake up, what am I supposed to do, right? I mean, it's one thing to have your, like, I have my vision board, I have my plan, um but I still knew that I didn't have to report to anybody, and I didn't have that immediate, supervisor accountability, or that I had to just check in with on a daily basis. So that was it was a challenge for me, because I just remember in the early stages, I would wake up and I'm like, okay, now tell me, Juliet, what am I supposed to be doing again today? And so I think, yeah, time is our most important resource. As a business owner, this is what you have to understand. Money is replaceable, but time is not. Time is, and in America, we say time is money. Time is more than money. Time is life. And once that time passes, you don't get it back. So it was challenging for me in the early stages. And I mean, and even now, I'm not going to even lie to you. I mean, I'm 7 years into it, and I've had some great wins, but I also think about, on some days, I'm like, okay, I didn't do everything that I needed to do today. I could have been more productive today. Um, and so I have to tell myself, I have to encourage myself, and just, make sure that I get back to, what I know I need to do.
Hmm. So why do you believe that the advice that you provide in Own Your Opportunities is different than other career and leadership books?
Well, for one, Own Your Opportunities is a story. It has um, advice in the back of the book, like lessons learned. When I wrote Own Your Opportunities, I was very intentional to write, um, to tell a story in a memoir like fashion. And the reason for that is because I think that readers engage more when there's a story. I believe that stories are powerful. Stories encourage us, stories challenge us. We can connect to feelings, we can connect to experiences when it's told in a story. versus when you read a self-help genre type of book, it's more like do this, do that. And I am very upfront in my book that, this is not, I don't believe that my story is a one size fits all approach. I don't take that type of approach with, when I'm, um, even when I'm advising people. I just believe in what I sought to do was to tell my story because we all have our own story. And I wanted to provide lessons that worked for me. And my hope is that maybe not 100% of the things will work for other people, but hey, if there are 50% of the things that I provide, pieces of advice that I provide in the book that may be helpful, then that's great. Because I think we all have to walk. We all have our own individual journeys. And so not everything that works for me is going to work for someone else. But there are going to be some nuggets of wisdom that will. And that's what I'm banking on. I also want to say this too. As a Black woman, there are not many authors, Black female authors that write leadership books. And so when I was in corporate America, I read many leadership books written by white men. And it was okay, it was good. It was good. It was good advice, but experiences that white men go through, or even white women for that matter, aren't going to always be the same for a Black woman in corporate America. So I wanted to also write this book because um, for readers who are specifically Black women, I wanted to make sure that I wrote something that was relatable to them. But I want to say this too before your next question. While I have Black women in mind when for Own Your Opportunities, what is very encouraging to me is that uh, white men, Black men, white women, different ages, they are connecting with the book as well, and that's very encouraging to me.
Hmm. So, our last question to guests on the show is always, what would you like to leave with the audience? So, what would you like to leave with the audience today?
Yeah, well, I would leave with the audience. Just well, first of all, I'm very grateful to be interviewed by you and on your show, and um, I just want my readers or the audience. I want the audience to just be encouraged and inspired that that they have special, unique, God-given gifts inside of them, and they also have a choice. I want them to be encouraged that if they don't feel like they are maximizing their potential inside the structure that they're in, that it's up to them if they want to make that pivot and do something more with their life, and they can. And um, I also want to leave with them that when you bet on yourself, and when you step out on faith with a plan and with a team that that can help you along the way, that anything is possible.
Great. So, thank you so much for coming onto the show today. Definitely think you left the audience with a lot of important information and advice to help their small business.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Katie.